What is up, brothers and sisters? Welcome to the Mitch Gray Show. Thank you for joining us again. For those of you that subscribe, we appreciate it. Hey, if you subscribe to the Mitch Gray Show, make sure you go give us a review, whatever platform you listen to it on, iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, Spotify, wherever. Hey, give us a review on the show. Make sure you let us know what you think about it. That helps us gain more and a bigger audience, and you know our goal is to inspire as many as we can. If you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook, you can tell that I have someone sitting next to me. That's my dear friend, Andy Mazzolini. We'll get to him in just 1 second. Make sure you follow us on social media, M Gray Media. That is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what you think about everything. I have had so many people reach out to me about the show in the last couple of weeks. It's been crazy. Our audience is growing, and people are excited. And I've had so many people reach out to me about how do I start a podcast? And my answer is I have no idea. You just start. If you have an iPhone or a smartphone, you just start. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just get your message out there. So thank you for reaching out to us. Please do so more often. Slide into our DMs. We certainly don't mind. If we don't like what you say, we'll just give you a thumbs up and ignore you. So that's how we roll. Okay. I have a special guest. And again, if you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook, you can see that he is sitting next to me, good-looking guy, got the great moose horn head or something or
That's
another
right,
behind
dude.
him. Yeah, my dear friend Andy Mazzolini. Andy, what is up, my brother? How are you?
Dude, just rock and rolling, man. How you been?
I'm good, bro. I am good. I appreciate you being on the show. I know we planned this for about a month, and you woke up this morning fighting human nature, and
That's right.
oftentimes the human body fails us, but man, you are toughing it out, and so thank you for toughing it out and still being with us.
Gotta rock it out, man. I had a client tell me, matter of fact, I got sick a few months ago, and my client retired vet, and he served 2 wars on the naval ship, and he told me when I said, "Hey, I'm sick today, but I'll get all that info over tomorrow." He said, "Hey, it doesn't matter if you're sick or not. This boat still needs to launch. We got to go."
It's something like a war veteran using war veteran language, right?
Yeah. And I'm just like, I'm literally like hugging a toilet right now. Like I can't, like I mentally and physically cannot like go and do these things that need to happen.
Yeah.
And then that's really when I've learned the value of leverage, and I was actually interviewing some admins and stuff like that, you know, down the road. But I was just like, I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, hey, that's a good motto, you know, especially in this industry.
That is a good motto, and we'll get to the industry that Andy is in here in a minute. But I will say, if you are sick, brothers and sisters, and have the flu or something contagious, don't take that advice. We do not stay home. I used to tell people that when I had employees, they would come in and be like, "I'm sick, but I can fight through it." I'm like, "Bull, you can go home because I don't want to be sick." So
that's what I tell my people too. Luckily, it's not a flu or anything like that. Yeah. I don't know what was going on. But
well, I'm glad you made it, brother.
I'm here.
Glad you made it. Yeah,
that's right, dude.
So just so everyone knows, first of all, tell us what industry you're. I know you have your hands. You're like me, man. You got your hands in a whole lot of things. But first of all, tell us kind of what your main focus and your industry, what industry you're in for the most part.
So I'm actually an agent over here in Lubbock, Texas, with Keller Williams, and it's a pretty fascinating industry. One reason is because you can create your own business within the company. So, you know, we go out and we're basically taught, one of the biggest mottos is, they say, teach a man to fish, don't bring him a fish, you know? And so what they do is they say, if you want to run your own business, real estate's one of the greatest places to do that.
Yeah.
And how all these brokerages have transitioned over the years just because of how the technology is. You know, they realized, hey, the brokerage isn't the reason why people are buying houses from Andy Mazzolini. It's actually Andy Mazzolini is the reason why people are using him for his services. And Keller Williams was really the pioneer of that.
Nice.
In the late 80s. And so I really love it. I have I got 3 virtual assistants, that work for me. And so they do some marketing, advertising, and then some just, managerial things. And then I have an admin and then I have a contract to close company that, that does all my transactions once they go under contract. So I'm leveraged.
So how long have you been in the real estate industry?
This is going on my 4th year.
Wow.
So, yeah. You know, it's been a crazy journey. Every once in a while, I'm like, gosh, everyone kind of gets burned out when they're just go, go, go. And I'm just like, I look back and I'm like, man, I don't have a boss. And my personality, I learned real quickly that, I work well with others, but I do not work well with someone telling me what to do when I'm outperforming them or they're lazy or whatever. Like I just, it's not good. And so the real estate world, I can't even believe I'm actually in this world, honestly, because my mom, I grew up in Clovis, New Mexico, and my mom was actually in the real estate when my dad was in the Air Force.
Okay.
And so I don't really remember when she was doing that. I want to say she worked for a company called like Martin Realty or Martin Real Estate.
Okay.
And so kind of fast forward to that, after I graduated with a degree in wind energy, I did not want to do anything in that industry, unfortunately.
Like most people that graduate with degrees, right?
Yeah, and statistically, it's 50-50 people who are like that.
Yeah.
Because I looked up those stats, and so I got married right out of college to high school sweetheart, and so we said, hey, we're both going to finish college before we get married and stuff like that. So we both graduated, and then we moved out here to Lubbock, and she got a job at UMC for a nursing position in the trauma ICU, and man, she really, really, really carried the torch in the new Mazzolini household for a while, and so. And I was kind of milking the system. I was like, all right, man, we got all our bills covered. She's got our rent covered. Like, you know what? Like, I'm going to take a few and, just kind of look for jobs. And man, I'm just not getting calls back, type deal. But, and I was fortunate that my dad runs and he owns a business in in Clovis as well. So on the weekends, I'd go down there and, at least feel somewhat, worthy.
So you weren't totally freeloading,
yeah. So I would work on the weekends on new installations for HVAC, and then I would come back to Lubbock on the weekdays, and so it was good, and I'm kind of just going over my journey into the real estate world, and so really I invested in Bitcoin. And so what happened with the Bitcoin world, one of my friends who I met here, he was actually with Edward Jones. He was a financial advisor. And I kept telling him, I said, man, this cryptocurrency stuff is crazy. Like, does Edward Jones sell it? Like, I would buy some from you, because he would want me to try and buy stocks and stuff. And I was like, no, I'm buying, cryptocurrency. I buy like Dogecoin, Bitcoin, Litecoin, you name it. I was buying everything. Yeah. No one knew what the Bitcoin eruption was really going to do, because honestly, everyone that I bought into, they all were basically that hyped.
Right.
And little be known, one reason why Bitcoin actually blew up was because it was being traded on the Silk Road. And that is a very, 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 very dark and bad place on the internet. And so it was being traded through currency and crazy stuff like that online. And that's really actually what blew up Bitcoin. A lot of people don't know that. So you'll see some like people who like can't stand Bitcoin, and they'll have some black ink dripping down it, and so it's basically saying that it's toxic.
Kind of symbolism. Yeah. So, how did your journey end with Bitcoin? Or are you still in it?
Yeah, so I mean,
without getting too personal here.
It went good. It went good, and some friends, it was crazy. I remember a guy who I worked with who at the time I was telling him about Bitcoin, and he calls me at like 4 a.m. on a Thursday and he says, "Do you see what Bitcoin's doing right now?" And I was
Oh,
like, "What?" And so I look and I was all, "Oh my gosh!" And he goes, "Dude, sell it,"
bail it
And
now.
I'm
Yeah.
just like, yeah.
Bail out, bail
So
out.
it was a crazy journey. I did sell out, on some
Yeah.
stuff like that, and so still kept a little bit, put it in other, when you're a cryptocurrency base, when you're like a day trader
Yeah. Yeah.
essentially,
Yeah. Yeah.
when you're selling and buying, you're really not taking that equity out of that. You're using it as a buying power
Right.
for
Right.
another stock.
Yeah. It's very much
And
leverage. Yeah.
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 And so, I lost a bunch and made a bunch. So it, it is what it is on the Bitcoin and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But, so what happened though is Edward Jones, reached out to me and they said, "Hey, we would like you to, maybe possibly look into the financial advising and,
Oh
stuff
wow.
like that." So I went through the course, on that, and it was about 2 months of training and whatnot. And those tests were rigorous, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy to get your stockbroker license and stuff like that. And I actually, what was funny is I wanted to study more about real estate investment trusts.
Mm.
And so I went to Barnes and Noble and I asked the lady, I said, "Hey, what's your number one real estate book for investors?" And she said, "Well, we have this." And she gave me a red book, and it's Gary Keller's Real Estate Millionaire book.
Yeah.
And so I didn't even look at the back. I just grabbed it. It was the number one seller at the time. So I started reading it, and it was talking about lead generating, how to run a business, how to look at LP&Ls. And I was just like, "Oh, what?" I was like, "This is an agent book. Like agents can do this."
Oh wow.
And because I'm from Clovis, and honestly, man, it's kind of the real estate world in Lubbock and Clovis is completely different.
Yeah,
It's a,
and geographically, for people that don't know, it's about an 85-mile separation. That's it. So geographically, they're very close, but very different worlds. Yeah.
and man, the real estate world, it's kind of a dog eat dog world type of
Yeah.
deal. It's the mentality I had on it and stuff. So long story short, I said, "You know what? Like this sounds really fun to me.
Yeah.
I'm jumping on this." So I went and took my tests and stuff like that, and I left a company that I just was not happy at working at the time. Before I started doing the training and stuff, it was just I was miserable. I mean, I didn't like I liked the boss personally. I did not like the boss, like work wise, just cause like I was saying, like if I'm out working someone, I feel like I should be getting paid what they're getting paid, not just
Right.
cause of titles. Like titles kill me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's this day.
Yeah.
Titles are just for, someone to be able to blow themselves up and say, "Hey, this is my title." And it's
Right.
just like, for what, And, so I bounced out of there, got into the real estate world, man, and it totally allowed me to be an investor, an entrepreneur, and a real estate agent. It's funny. My dad told me, he said, "Man, there's two things that I hate in life, uh, car salesmen and real estate agents. And my son is one of them." And
Thanks, Dad. Thanks, Dad.
yeah, thanks, Dad. And so like I just laughed at that because I mean, honestly, there is a lot of shady people in this industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's bad, it's bad. It's crazy about some of the things that I hear on the day-to-day basis that some agents have either done or said or stuff like that. And and I will say what's funny about that in the real estate world, that I've noticed, it's the older generation or who are still trying to hard sell people,
Oh yes. Yes.
and so my deal is I want this transaction to go through smoothly. So me and you can be friends
Yes.
at the back end. I don't want this just a job of me finding you a house, selling you on a house in a location, collecting my commission check,
Right.
and then just saying see you later,
Yeah.
and so that's the mentality I went into it with. And man, it's been really, really cool. Some of the transactions that I've had, to be able to help people, not only, getting their things sold or anything like that, but being able to connect people. Matter of fact, I just had a closing last week, and, she was getting, released from her job in about a month.
Wow.
And so she couldn't take her mortgage, in a month. So I said, hey, you might want to look at maybe losing your earnest money on this, just kill the transaction and find a rental place until we can figure out how much your income's going to be, and then we can start it.
Right.
Well, I got her with a vet clinic who's opening up here.
Oh, nice.
And,
Yeah.
and so like I connected them because I helped my clients
Yep.
find land, and they built a vet clinic. And I helped a lady who's the company was closing down. They just got told, hey, we got 90 days essentially.
Right.
Go look for other work. So I was able to basically get these two people who have no idea that they need each other, and they're both perfect fits for that type of job. Got them connected.
Yes.
And so, I helped out two people in the transaction outside of the real estate transaction. And there are agents like that out here too. It's awesome. Some of the agents that I'm able to work with and stuff like that, they're great people as well.
Yeah. It's like, I always tell people, you can either be transactionary, and so everything is based on a transaction, or you can be a humanitarian. And what I mean by that is just flip and be human, man. I call that compassionate selling.
For sure.
It's like, and you and I have a common background in some sales with another company, and you always deal with those people, whether you're buying, clothes, or whether you're buying houses, or whether you're selling cars or selling, life insurance. You can either be transactionary, but I promise the transactionary person doesn't sleep well at night. And I also promise that over the next decade, they're eating bottles of Tums every day. The human person is what you just described. So I just want to say, as an entrepreneur and a business person, thank you, because we need more people like that. That is beautiful to be a matchmaker and to be that aware. I think a lot of people just aren't aware. Like, a lot of people don't think, oh, wait, I know these other people who could help this person out.
Yeah. And what's cool is, like, my mentality is, especially how my personality is, I ask myself, okay, how do I want to go about on tackling these transactions? Do I just want to try and just say, hey, I'm not going to go for the quality transaction. I'm just going to go for the quantity, and I'm just going to try and get as many people to buy homes as possible in my database. And I was just like, I can't do that. People burn out doing that, and then it's 2019 now. You're going to get sniffed out. If you're trying to hard close people, because those tactics don't work. And so my deal is, I said, okay, let's just come from value. If I got to show a client 15 homes until they find the one that they like, then it's going to take 15 homes. If they're going to see 3 homes and know which one they pick, then there's that. I'm not selling it, and kind of to go even further on that is, in the real estate world in Texas, I don't know how it is in New Mexico, but we can represent the seller and the buyer transaction.
Right.
And it's called intermediary status. And with that, to me, you just can't, to me, it's just crazy, because here I am representing a seller. So if you come and you want to buy a house that I have listed, whose better intentions should I have that for? Should it go to the buyer or to the seller? So my deal is, like, I do not like doing that. I've had where a buyer has come to me from my database and said, hey, I like this listing. Can I see it? And I showed it to them, and they liked it, and they said, I want to make an offer on it. And I tell them, I'm like, hey, here's the deal. I've already signed stuff with the seller. I want you to go ahead and get represented by another agent. Here's a list of 3 top 20%, or 3 agents who are in the top 20% that I know that are going to take care of you.
Right.
And they'll kind of look at me and they'll be like, you don't, Like, no, it's not, I don't want to work with you. Is
Yeah.
I just feel like I can't put on my buyer's hat
Right.
and then put on my seller's hat when I know too much information. There's too much information and I just feel uncomfortable with that because I don't want in 2 years you to feel like I burned you,
Yeah,
you know?
but isn't that the honesty and vulnerability that? And what's crazy is people look at you and go, "You don't want to rep me." Like in a way, you're being the most honest and vulnerable that you can. But it's almost like buyers have been conditioned to take that as almost an insult. You know what I mean? And so you have to recondition them to say, no, 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 this is the way I can take care of you to the best of my. I'm like looking out for you more doing this than I am doing the other.
Yeah.
But it's crazy that buyers have been so conditioned that they can't even recognize that, you know?
Yeah. And, man, we get it all the time. When I have buyer consultations, it's really the older generation, honestly, Mitch, like who still have that like guard up of like, oh, this agent's gonna, just try and sell me on this house or whatever,
Right.
or blah, blah, blah. Our generation, and the millennials and all that stuff, they love transparency.
Yeah.
I show them, what the private remarks are from the other agents and stuff like that. And so it's the industry it can be full of bad apples,
Yeah.
but me, like everyone tries to change the world and stuff like that through the right training and education and the sales and stuff like that. So it's really cool, man. I've met some of my best friends, in this industry. So
That's awesome. That is
been good.
awesome. Yeah, and for those that are listening or watching also, Andy and I go way back. So I actually performed your wedding.
That's right, dude.
Yeah, it's like I think I
You
played at your
officiated
wedding.
it and you officiated
Yes.
and played. Like you played and then like you ran
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
you
yeah,
got
yeah.
on the altar and then you you told us our blessings.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
dude.
exactly right. That's one of those like double double occupancy weddings. It's almost like, yeah, we got one guy, we can hire him. What all can you do? Well,
That's right. Well, I remember we went and listened to a couple people for some live music and we were just like, yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
And we were just like, that was not good. Like we just like, and then, I was just like, well, maybe we can ask Mitch to also play. And then we met you and the two other people like at an office somewhere and you guys played a couple songs for us.
Right.
And, obviously I'm going to be biased because I was like,
Right.
he's it. He's it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then Helica's like, oh, that was good. And
Yeah.
so yeah, dude, it all
Yeah.
just came together like that. And
That was a
it was
really cool
great.
ceremony, man. That was you both have beautiful families, and I've done a lot of weddings, and that's one that I remember, not just because it was you and I knew you already, but yeah.
And you remember when, we did the rehearsal and everything, and that day I was so nervous, and I'm not a nervous person at all, like in front of
You were
people or
like
anything like
sweating
that.
bullets nervous.
And you were like, okay, and you started saying the vows, and then you were like, looked at me and you're like, now you say it. And I'm like, what'd you say? Like, I can't even pay attention. And like, everyone started laughing.
Yeah.
And then, I went, and I'll never forget this. I went, you gave us a signal for something. I went to go take Angelica's hand from, Tommy, her dad.
Mm-hmm.
And he like blocked me and was like, not yet. And I was like, oh, and I like stepped back and I was like, okay, just chilling. Everyone started laughing and I was like, I'm totally screwing this up. Whatever. So,
Yeah, man. It's the fun little moments. That's what I always tell people when I do a wedding. I'm like, first of all, I want to have fun because everyone's already nervous. And so let's just make it fun. Second of all, you're not going to remember anything I say. So it doesn't really, I could read a magazine for all anyone cares and no one would know. Third of all, it's just going to be a fun little moment, and it's the little intricacy, those little tiny moments like that make a wedding memorable. Like, I hate going to weddings and it's so rigid and strict, and everyone's like, wow, this marriage is not going to work because this wedding isn't working. So those human moments like that, man. Yeah, because the stage was way off from the stage that we played music. I do remember running now right after I played that song.
yeah.
Yeah. So sorry, friends, we're just going off on tangents here. I want to go back
Good
to
times.
I want to go back to, because you and I have had a lot of conversations in the past about what it takes to be an entrepreneur. So I think there's a few different categories of people in life. First of all, I think everyone has a dream or a passion. It's just that many people aren't sure what to do with that, and either they're not sure what to do with it, or either they can't really summon the courage or the self-permission to do something with it. But I believe deep down, it's like you talk to those people and they're like, oh, I love baking cupcakes and I would love to bake cupcakes all the time. My question always is, well, why aren't you doing it? And then people look at you like I could actually bake cupcakes all the time? And you're like, well, sure you could. Look at the baking channel or whatever that channel is on TV.
Right.
So everyone has a passion or a dream. But even inside your passion and dream, not everyone is an entrepreneur. And I think that's where people miss the boat. You can live within your passion and dream without being an entrepreneur. It's more about placement. You are an entrepreneur through and through. So for the listeners that are that type of DNA, what are some things that you would, call it advice, call it encouragement, whatever you want. I love the thoughts that you share with me often. And so people need to hear some of those thoughts. What are some things you would tell someone who's like, yeah, I want to be an entrepreneur?
For sure. Man, and it's an honor for you, calling me an actual entrepreneur and stuff like that too. I don't get that much. But man, there's a lot of things. One of the first things is that I learned is success is not an addition. It's always a subtraction. And I live by that motto of success is not an addition. It's a subtraction. And what I mean by that is a lot of people think, well, I got to go do this, and then I got to get this done, and then I got to do this, and then I got to make this much to be able to live on this much. And really, it's what you need to subtract in your life.
Yes.
Yes. And it's okay. Am I playing too much video games? Then looking and trying to find a website build out, for my cupcakes that I'm going to bake, and that's what I mean. So what I did was, I wrote out basically my schedule, when I worked, at the company. And so obviously I would, from 8 to 5 every day was time blocked off for my job. And then my career hours was really from 6 until 1. And that's where I started buying self-study books. I started buying books like, for entrepreneurs on like what type of businesses, and, what do I want to go back to school and stuff like that.
Right.
And so what I did was I was able to start subtracting the things out of my life, that were a deterrent to get to my next goal.
Yes.
And so it was maybe cutting time out on the weekdays with the boys, at one of the bars or whatever, hanging out, cutting it up. It was, okay, I'm going to go home and I'm going to study this and I'm going to get better at this.
Right.
Really, I'm a huge Celtics fan, so I didn't like Kobe until after he retired. But I listened to a podcast that he was on the other day, and it blew my mind how big of an entrepreneur he is. Yes. And because he got a bad rap with his teammates that he would never go to dinner, he would never do any extracurriculars with the teams. But he was always in the gym at like 5 a.m. And then he would go back before game. Like he's just, an animal. Mm-hmm. And, but he would never make friends with his team. And it was because he was going back to his apartment at his first year and learning how to invest his money.
Yes.
And so he started getting savvy with that. Mm-hmm. And so, that's an entrepreneur right there, thinking about that. Yeah. So that's one of the deals. And the other thing, man, I always love this discussion as people say, well, I don't have enough time, to do this. I don't have enough time to do that. I don't have enough time in the day. There is no balance. Like people say, like, I need to balance my work day with my real life. your whole life is based around relationships, whether you like it or not. If you're an introvert, you're still going to be, your whole life is based around relationships.
Yeah.
Now, how you go and handle those situations is going to be dependent on your personality. But my deal is there's no balance and it's all integration. You have to integrate everything that is a priority to you on your schedule. Because there's days when I go to work, I'll go to work from 8 in the morning until 11. And then if I have some personal stuff that I'm going to go take care of or go do, I won't work until 6. And then I'll go home or come back to my office here and I'll work from 7 until 11 when I get the paperwork done or whatever.
Right.
So every week I'm basically integrating the next day. So, and my days always start the night before, if that makes sense.
Right. Yes.
And so, that's where it was. One of the, I don't even know if I talked to you about this, but one of my deals was in the real estate world, since there is no retirement plans.
Right.
That's the scariest thing for me getting into real estate.
Yeah.
And probably 9 out of 10 people that you come across in your life, people will always want to say, I want to invest in real estate, and they don't know how.
Right.
And again, they're thinking that they got to make all this money for 20% down or whatever to go buy an investment property. I could show you a contract that I bought 3 houses for $2,000. I bought 3 houses that cash flow me in the black. They're rented, everything like that. I bought it for $2,000. And so when people say those books aren't real, like that's not how the real world works. It is. You just have to work really, 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 really hard to find those deals. Yeah. And you're not, and so with that deal, because they always say buy a house with no money.
Right.
That's true. Like you can do that. Read it and then you go and apply those stuff. And then all of a sudden you're just going to scratch your head and be like, oh my God, I'm buying these homes.
What just happened? Yeah.
Cause I went, I kind of tell you the story about it. So long story short, this investor, that I was working with, he just randomly calls me 6 months later and says, hey, I need to sell these homes.
Yeah.
And so I gave him the comps, and then it was just, they were in bad shape. And he said, hey, I just want cash out. Can you wholesale these for me? He doesn't live here anymore, anything like that. And I said, I'll buy them. I'll buy them for this price if you want. And he said, deal.
Wow.
And so he basically, financed them for me. And that's how you don't bring any money down. That's right. Basically the trick to the transaction is right. If you can go find an investor to owner finance it or private finance, whatever term you want to call it. Right. So basically I worked in a deal, how much I was going to pay him per month. And the other key to that is you have to buy it below enough to be able to do a cash out refi or just a refinance.
Right.
And I was able to buy it with that amount. And what's cool is he's still one of my clients. And I essentially bought 3 houses for free, that are now rented out. I did have some issues with the tenants before that. And so got them all kicked out, got them re-rented. Yeah. And, and I love working with, I call them not first time home buyers, first time investors, because it's so funny when I get someone come in my office, Mitch, with like their notepad and everything, and they printed this packet off that they spent $1,200 on to go through this training program. And I'm just like, oh man, you bought into that. I'm like, okay, throw all that out. Yeah. Like just everything, throw it out. Yeah. You just got sold, Yeah. And so it's like, I'll give you this book that's at Barnes and Noble that helped me acquire these 3 properties, and it was $1,299.
Yeah. $1,200.
And so, and that's one of the greatest things too, is that investor, like we're still good friends, and he knew, he knew what I was going to pay him. And so, he knew what I was going to pay him. And so, he knew what I was going to pay him. And so, he knew what I was going to pay him. And so, he knew what I was going to pay him. And so, he knew what I was going to pay him. And so, he knew what I was going to pay him. And so, he knew what I was going to pay him. And so, he knew what I was going to pay him. And so, he knew what I was going to pay him. And so, he knew what I was going to pay him. And so, he knew what I was going to pay him. And so, he knew what I was going to pay him. And so, he knew what I was going to pay him. And so, he knew what I was going to pay him. And so, he knew what I was going to pay him. And so, he knew what I was going to pay him. And so, he knew what I was going to pay him. And so, he knew what I was going to pay him. And so, he knew what I was going to pay him. And so, he knew what I was going to pay him. And so, he knew where I needed it at, and it made sense for him. So guess what? We got a deal going because it was a win for him and a win for me.
Right.
And so, you know, that is also one of the keys to entrepreneurship, is actually doing it.
Yes.
And so, you know, I always say failing is also the ingredient to success.
Yes.
So
Yes. I am to the point that I've pretty much eradicated the word failure from my vocabulary because it's a myth. If number one, it holds people back. Like the fear and the failure aspect makes people go, no, I could never do that. To me, it's like failure isn't a real thing. It's a myth, because if I do something and it messes up, but I take that mess up and go, okay, I should have done this, or I'm going to try that, then that's a success.
yeah,
Like, that is not failure. And so the other idea I always try and teach people is fear is a great teacher. If we can learn from fear, and so it's like, I want fear to be my friend. You know, people, I always tell people, I'm like, you're trying to fight a ghost when you're trying to fight fear. You will never eradicate that emotion. That is a human emotion. So learn from it. And so I think you're exactly right. Failure is just this mythological unicorn that we've created to keep us from actually living to full potential. And so,
yeah. And kind of go down a rabbit hole on that. You know, I was always taught in school is if you got it wrong, you got an F, which means you failed. And so we have this huge, you know, shadow of being told at a young age that failure is not an option to success.
Right.
Is you constantly have to get it right.
Yep.
You know, and then we label these kids, I think it was called at Zia where I went, like EP, like extra or star, like what is it called now?
Something,
what is it called?
Yeah,
for
I
all
don't
the
remember,
smart,
but something like that. Yeah.
It's basically where all the smart kids got out of class and they went and did
GP,
smart kid things.
gifted and talented, gifted program, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's just like, you know, I remember at a young age, I'd just be like, I'll school all of them on the basketball court if they come out here, you know, or like whatever.
But we're automatically drawing those lines of segregation and telling kids you're better than everybody else or you're worse than everybody else.
And yeah, and it all, like, if you can think about the top. So one of my deals is, okay, I want to surround myself as well with the top 5 people who I want to be like.
Yes.
And you know, who are those top 5 people? And you know what was crazy is I remember some of the people who I grew up with in Clovis who I'm still in like touch with, or, you know, I'm friends with them on Facebook. And some of those people are still like stuck in this like toxic, just mentality of the world, you know, is against me and stuff like that. And all the kids who I grew up with also that weren't, you know, labeled these gifted, talented, kids and then went to college and all sorts of stuff. They're very successful, like entrepreneurs, or, they're running some companies, and they were like the C students that are, and so then I like kind of dove in and I was like, well, why is that? And it's because we're risk takers, because when we do take our tests at a young age or whatever, and we grow up, I would get an F on something. And I'd be like, well, how much? Oh man. Okay. And then I asked the teacher, hey, what do I have to get on the next test to get a A in this class? You know, and then I'd be like, just scheming, like, okay, I gotta get a 94 on the next test. So I gotta cram.
Right.
And so, I mean, I was a BC student, in high school. School wasn't for me. I don't know how I graduated with a degree in college. I still have nightmares that I've left papers, like to this day. Like I'll wake up in extreme anxiety, but you know, it's just interesting with the personalities and the where some people are at and stuff like that in this world. That's why some people tell me they're not smart enough to do something, and I'm just like, try, and you're going to do better than 90% of the people who are smarter than you, because I hire smart people.
Right.
You hire smart people.
Right.
Like the girls who work for me,
Yeah.
they're 10 times smarter than me.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And what's crazy is that you mentioned that, because I hear people say that a lot. I could never do that, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not good enough. And you know what my rebuttal has become? Who told you that?
yeah,
Like, someone had to tell you that for you to believe it. What's crazy is the majority of the time it relates back to childhood. Someone in their childhood, a coach, a teacher, a parent, a grandparent, an aunt, or an uncle, told them at a young age, you're not good enough, you'll never achieve that, you'll never be able to do it, you're not pretty enough, you're not strong enough. And as what's crazy is you can look up psychological studies, and there are so many adults that are walking around stuck in third grade. And the reason they're stuck there mentally and psychologically is because someone at that moment labeled them. And not only that, it's not just the negative aspect. It is the gifted and talented kids that oftentimes get things handed to them. And I have to admit, I was that kid. I was the kid that did so well that oftentimes I didn't have to earn things. And guess what that did to me when I hit 25, 30 years old? It jacked me up, because I walked out into the world and all of a sudden realized you have to work for stuff. You have to make it happen. And so it's both sides of the coin. You know, you look at some of the people in the world. I could name some very public names right now. People would know who I'm talking about. But we have examples of people in the world now that everything their whole life has been given to them. And so guess what their approach to the world is? That everyone's there to serve them. And then all of a sudden they start getting backlash, and it's like they're literally stuck in third or fourth grade with what they learned. And so I was always sensitive to that as a parent. I was like, look, I want my kids to be talented. I want them to be smart, but I also want them to know, A, they can achieve anything they set their mind to, and B, to do that, they're going to have to work really, really hard. And fortunately, our kids are at the age that that's coming into play, and they're learning that, and they're very successful. But it is a weird thing how we reflect back on our childhood. I told someone one time on a podcast, I said the hardest thing for me was at 30 years old waking up and going, man, I was really screwed up. And now all of a sudden you're having to rewire everything.
Dude, you're exactly right. You know, one of my biggest motivations is because of two people growing up in my childhood. And one of them was a coach. And I bet some of the people who are going to listen to this will know exactly what happened.
We won't name names.
Yeah. And you know, the coach told me when everyone was trying out, he goes, how do you pronounce your last name? And I told him. He goes, okay, I'll remember that. And he goes, and he told me, he said, go get those jerseys. You're on the team. And so I was like, yes, you know, like made it. And so he writes my name down and everything. And he asked for my number and stuff like that. So I gave it to him. I go home and I tell my parents, and I was like, hey, I made the team, blah, blah, blah. He's going to announce it tomorrow. And I started naming off all my friends who made it as well that he had on the roster. And, so like me and my friends are calling each other and, excited. The next day he starts calling out the kids in the morning, doesn't call my name.
Oh, no.
And so I was like, and I just went and got the new Jordans. Parents bought the Jordans and everything. They're blue and white. I still have them in my closet, actually. Like I still have them.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I was like distraught. Yeah. And all my friends were like, how are you not? I'm like, no, that's a mistake, you know? And then parents were calling my parents and they were like, what happened?
Yeah.
And so my dad was just like, hey, you know, whatever the reason, we're not going to go complain about it. What we're going to do is we're going to get you on an AAU team, like immediately. And then, you know, the coach, he called my parents and said that, he made a mistake and he thought he named my name, and he would want me on the team. And I felt like me and my dad also felt like he was just trying to save face.
Right.
Cause you don't tell a kid that and then decide not to pick them. And so it took a long time to trust people. Yes. When they tell me something, I'm always like, I'll believe it when I see it. Right. And that's just, you know,
From
That's
that
the reason
one
why.
incident. Yes, it's
Incident,
amazing. Yes.
incident.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later, I had this English teacher pull me aside, and she told me, because I mean, my deal is I have a personality, and
Right.
you can't keep me quiet. And I was just like making jokes after jokes every day, and it was just making her so mad.
Yeah.
And she pulled me after class, and she said, "Hey, I just want to tell you something. The way you are and the way you act, uh, you're not going to do anything in this life."
Mhm.
And she goes, unless if you change your act. And I was just like, "What do you mean?" And she told me, she goes, "You're going to be homeless if you don't change your act."
Oh, jeez.
And so I was just like, "What?"
Wow.
And really, one of my deals was, in the real estate world, I Googled an average salary
Mhm.
of what a school teacher makes. And I said, I want to make that in 1 month.
Yeah.
And I want to go find her. And I just want to be like, "Hey, do you
Here,
remember me?" Like,
here's my homeless status.
yeah. And, and it's just like, "Do you remember me?"
Yeah.
And that, cause I remember you, like,
Yeah.
I remember what she wore that day when she told me
Right.
that,
Right.
like everything like
Right.
that. And so I use a lot of that as motivation,
Yeah.
to set big goals and stuff like that. And so it's a blessing, but it's also a curse.
Yeah, it's that's one thing I try and talk about often, just to reiterate the words that we use with each other and with ourselves
Hmm.
are they literally speak. There's this spiritual teaching that says words either give life or death. And that's very true. And oftentimes we remember that with each other, but we forget that with ourselves, and we internally beat ourselves up. And that's one thing I try and put into this message all the time is the words you use and the way you use them will either speak life or death over someone. And so
Hmm.
it's great that guys like you and me can take those incidences, and there's millions of other people that have done it, and we can turn it into motivation for positivity. The downside is we also have our brothers and sisters out there who are in depression or considering
Yeah.
taking their life or whatever. And oftentimes it's stemmed from, I deal a lot with kids that are going through different things, or maybe a kid is homosexual or whatever. And people forget that those young people and even adults are going through these inner struggles, and the last thing they need is someone telling them that if they don't get their act together, they're going to be homeless. It's amazing what positivity does, and it's simultaneously amazing how often we forget the power of positivity.
Hmm. Yeah. And, kind of touching on the depression and, anxiety and all that
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, with all the technology and the information and all that stuff coming out now, like we're seeing, the mental health
Yes.
game really just take off
Yes.
with everything we're able to do now.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, like, man, everyone to some sort, if they're breathing on this earth, they have depression.
Yes. Yes.
Now, their lows are going to be different than other people's lows, and their highs are going to be higher than other people's highs.
Mm-hmm.
I have one friend who lost a parent, and the next day he grieved, and the next day he was totally fine, and said, "Man, I'm just blessed that he's my father,
Yeah.
and he taught me so many life lessons, and I'm gonna pass this on to my kids."
Yeah.
And I was just like,
Yeah.
everyone, and I'm not kidding you, everyone got in a group text, and we're like, "Hey, is he okay? Like,
Yeah.
he's not taking
This is
this,
too fast.
but
Like, this
we,
is too
yeah."
fast. Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And so there's people wired like that, but
Yeah.
I don't like when the people think, that other people don't go through depression and stuff like
Right.
that, because, and I always tell people, like, don't judge your insides on those other people's outsides. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and just because we don't know what they're battling with on a day to
Yeah.
day basis, or, what happened in previously in their life and stuff like that. But I just don't like when people say, "Well, you got depression." And it's like, Well, we all have depression to an extent.
Yeah.
Because I tell you what, when I have transactions fall through and stuff like that, and you know, that's my livelihood, guess what? I'm gonna be a little depressed that for whatever reason
Right.
it fell through.
Right.
But yeah, so,
Yeah.
and anxiety, you know.
There's just a compassion and a sensitivity that we should all hopefully live with, that says, I'm not going to judge you. I'm going to accept you, and I want to be here to help you wherever you're at. If you're in a joyous moment, awesome. If you're in a bad moment, let me help you, you know. And but hey, that's what we're all striving for, right? That's why guys like you and I do what we do, so we can start evolving into more of that. So
Yeah.
I love it, man. We have to make a confession to our listeners and our viewers, and that confession is that Andy and I are both diehard Patriots fans. And I know some of our listeners and viewers are not, that, you know, that we may actually lose listenership on that confession, but please,
Yeah, they just turned it off.
be compassionate and accepting of us. If you view being a Patriots fan as a failure in life, just remember, we still accept you, and we hope that you Steeler fans will still accept us as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, man,
Yeah.
I'm pumped. The game is this weekend.
Dude, I tell you what. So, when we went to the AFC Championship game a couple years ago, we made it up to Boston, and it was the year that Brady got suspended because the referee didn't know what gauges he used, and the NFL didn't realize that there is actually a law of when air pressure will go down when it's colder.
Right.
And so beyond that point, I never wanted to win something that I wasn't a part of more than that.
Yeah.
I literally, when we made it to AFC Championship game, we came back by 2 scores against Jacksonville.
Right.
And, I looked at Angelica and I said, we're going next week. We're going to Boston.
Yeah.
And, we went and this is the craziest part about real estate. The relationships that you make, kind of go back on that part. I was letting all my clients know who I had under contract. Hey, I'm going out of town. I'm going to Boston for this deal, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And, so I was letting all my clients know, and I said, hey, my admin at the time, I said, hey, she's going to take care of you for anything you need, or you can text me as well. I had a lady, I won't say her name, but she says, you're going to Boston? And I said, yeah, I'm going to go watch the Celtics game on Saturday. They're going to play Toronto, and then I'm going to go watch the Patriots on Sunday. And she goes, well, I guess I can tell you who I am now. Because previously she wouldn't give me her name. She just used an LLC. And I kept telling her, like, man, you look so familiar. Like, you just look so familiar. And I couldn't pin it. Now I've represented a girl who she was a contestant on Survivor. She got second place. So like, I've dealt with high profile people here in Lubbock, so I know that they want their privacy kept purchasing a home and whatnot. Right. And well, she tells me who her name is, and her husband is a famous Celtic NBA All-Star champion. And I was just like, what? And I was like, out of all the people in the world, you're moving here to Lubbock. Yeah. Like, this is insane. And she says, hey, I'm going to get you courtside seats. I'm going to get you tickets. I'm going to call Danny Ainge right now. And she gets out her phone. I was like, that's Danny Ainge's phone number right there. And, calls him up and he said, hey, of course, for your friends, we got the tickets here. Wow. So we fly, we get our little passes, and I asked the security guy, and I said, and I knew his name because he's famous because he's been at the TD Garden for 25 years. Oh, wow. And I was like, I said, hey, Ross, and I've never met him before, but I know him, you know? And I was like, what can I do with these passes? It says media pass. And he was like, what do you mean? You ain't media? And I was like, no, I'm not media. He goes, how'd you get those? I said, Donna John, oops. Whoops. Beep that out. Edit that out. And he goes, you're her friend? And he's like, you come with me. He goes, you get all access. Wow. Walker, media, food. Wow. And so we sat courtside, dude. And it was awesome. The craziest thing. And then we went to the Patriots game, and I told Angelica, I said, this is the best moment of my life right now. Like this trip can't ever get better. And she was like, even over our wedding. And I was like, even over our wedding, I'm going to admit it. And she goes, I agree. And because like she's a huge Patriots fan too and stuff like that. And
That's
man,
awesome.
it was awesome seeing him just get the revenge tour. So I'm pumped for this Sunday, dude. I'm in Lubbock, Texas. I'm in the Pat Mahomes home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I got every day I got people putting Pat Mahomes and KC stuff on my window.
Right.
But you know what's going to happen on Monday?
Yep.
I'm going to do just what I did when we won the championship. I'm going to wear my Patriot jersey. I'm going to bring my 20 by 25 flag, and I'm going to walk again to everyone's office and just say hello. Cause I did that at the Super Bowl with the Atlanta. It came back. I went viral on Reddit and Facebook. I don't know if you remember that, but they took a picture of it, and there was over like 25,000 likes and shares and stuff like that because I was just trolling everyone in the office.
That is awesome.
To the point where they were locking their doors and texting me saying, seriously, if you don't stop, I'm going to get upset. And I was just like, I don't care. Like, so, like, you were pestering me the whole week, and I had 27 text message you when it was 28-3.
Yep.
Where you at now? You know?
Yeah.
And so
that is awesome, bro. That is,
and that's why people don't like Patriot fans too, dude, is because we can't get any better. Like 8 times in a row to the AFC Championship.
Right.
I was messing with people on Facebook so much about this Patriot stuff. I said, oh, great. I said, the Chiefs get to play in the AFC, quote unquote, can you beat the Patriots championship weekend? Like, we've been there so many times. And it's just like, and people are like, well, what happens if you lose? I'm like, we'll be there next year.
Yeah. It was so funny. The other day I heard a stat, and if you do the math, it works, that the last time the Patriots were not in the AFC championship game, Pat Mahomes didn't even have a driver's license. Like, think about that for a second. And I got to be honest, man. I love watching that dude play. We went to Tech a few times and watched him play when he was there. He is just an exciting player, man. And so I told you earlier in the year, and now that we've probably lost half of our viewership, I told you earlier in the year that the one team I didn't want to face was, and the only reason is that dude, talk about fearless. We were talking earlier about having no fear. That's what I love about watching Pat Mahomes play, man. He's just like, you know what? If I don't try it, it'll never work. So I got to try it. And he is the epitome of what Michael Jordan said years ago. I miss 100% of the shots I never take.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's what Pat Mahomes brings to the quarterback.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great game. It's going to be great fun. My son Micah's team plays. He's a Saints fan, and so it's a pretty fun day for the Gray family.
Really cool.
That's going to be a good game too. So
yeah,
hey, man. For those that are still listening or watching us live, even tell us. I didn't mention earlier. Tell us where people can find you on social media, since you're mentioning Facebook.
Man, so my real estate group is called Next Level, and so you can go to LubbockNextLevel.com, and our social media is linked on there as well, so you can see the Facebook. Don't follow me on Twitter if you don't like the Patriots, because that's all I use Twitter for, is all my Boston sports. So, and I get to be that huge Boston fanatic because I was born in New Hampshire. My grandpa pitched for the Red Sox.
Awesome.
And so I always tell people, like, hey, if you want the smoke, then come at it. You know,
You don't got to justify it here, my brother. You don't got to justify it here.
So anyways, there's that. But Instagram and Facebook, I really like to keep it personal. I do have a Facebook page, Next Level Group at Lubbock. But man, just add me on a personal friend, and that's how I like to roll with
What is
people.
your Instagram handle?
It's just NLG_homes.
Okay, NLG Next Level Group _homes. NLG Homes. So,
and one of my deals too is we're huge in the social media. That's where I think it's going.
Totally.
So I'm crazy in the social media stuff. I actually have those Snapchat glasses, and you can follow me on Snapchat too. Just look up Andy Maz.
Okay.
Man, when we do tours of new listings coming up, I pop those glasses on, hit the play button, and you get to see the house through that and stuff. And man, we've actually sold some homes
Oh,
doing
cool.
through some followers and stuff. It's pretty cool. So follow
Nice.
us on all the social media.
Okay, so on Snapchat, you can see some cool virtual stuff. Andy Maz, make sure if you're on Snapchat, add him there. On Instagram, make sure you go to NLG, that stands for Next Level Group _Homes, HOMES. A few things, man, that you said that I really, really like that I want to reiterate with our people listening out there. You made a statement earlier that you kind of just skipped through, and that was it's all integration.
Mm-hmm.
I love that because one message that we talk about a lot is you can't look at life segregated. You can't look at life as finding balance. Life is a whole. And when you start trying to piece it apart, that's when the frustration sets in. And so I love that statement. It's all integration. And then I want to finish up today with asking our listeners and viewers a question, and that is, who are your top 5? So earlier Andy was talking about find your top 5 people in the world. That if you could be like anyone, find those top 5 people and then follow them, ask them questions. That's the other miracle of social media. I have used social media to contact people and have discussions with people that I never would have been able to before, whether it's because of their level of fame or whatever it is. And so find your top 5 people and try and figure out how they're living, how they're making things work, and learn from them. I want to ask you one last question, Andy, because I know you're a lover of books. Give me your top 3 books that you would recommend to everyone today.
Man, so for me, since it's in the sales, I'm looking at my books right now. I'm gonna grab one, and it's my favorite. It's my favorite book. So this book is what taught me how to hire ISAs and virtual assistants. So, I mean, I have 3 of them working for me that do a high-level job. They have degrees. And you want to guess how much I pay one of the virtual assistants? Just take a guess per hour.
Per hour, let's go $1.50.
$2.
$2.
$2 an hour.
I cheated because I've studied that as well.
There you go. So I pay her $2, and she is also in charge of the other ISAs and the virtual assistants. And so I learned it through this book.
So that's the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. By the way, follow Tim Ferriss on social media as well. Cool.
Yeah, it's a great book. The other one is Fanatical Prospecting. So when I moved here to Lubbock, I didn't know anyone, and I was fortunate enough to make it in the top 20%. And it was all due to prospecting, cold calling, circle prospecting, all that stuff. So, Fanatical Prospecting by Jeb Blunt. So that's my other book. And then, you want 3 more?
Yep. One more.
So I'm gonna give you a bonus. The One Thing book.
Yes,
so that was actually, so the One Thing is actually written by a guy who works for Keller Williams International. So, Jay Papazian, I actually was fortunate enough to be able to get to know him personally, him and his wife, and have dinner with them because they have a team out in Austin, Texas. So Jay and Wendy Papazian, you guys are legit. And then the other one is called Grit. Grit is great. That one is by Angela. I want to say I just saw the front. Angela Duckworth. Yeah. So Grit is a really good book as well.
Okay, so the 4-Hour Work Week. What was the prospecting book called?
Fanatical Prospecting. So if you're in sales, I say read that. It doesn't matter what industry. It will teach you that no matter what industry you're in the sales, it's all the same. The only thing different is the product you're selling.
Yep.
And then the One Thing.
The One Thing, which is also written with Gary Keller. That is a life-changing book. It doesn't matter who you are or what you work in. The One Thing, that is a recommended book, in my opinion, to every single human being walking the earth.
And to hit on that before we go, I just wanted to say on that book, it teaches you that not necessarily what's the word I'm looking for? Talent. So necessarily talent isn't going to trump. They talk about systems.
Yes.
So tools and systems is always going to trump talent. Yes. So if you don't have the tools or systems in place, your talent's only going to bring you so far. Yeah. And that's what really taught me from that book.
Yeah, totally. All right, brothers and sisters, thanks for listening to the Mitch Gray Show. We're going to finish up here with Andy. Please follow him on Instagram, NLG, that's Next Level Group _Homes. If you're on Snapchat, make sure you friend him on Snapchat, Andy Maz, M-A-Z-Z. Go check out those book recommendations that he just gave us. And I want to apologize if you're not a Patriots fan. We took about 10 minutes and went off on our Patriots fandom, and we don't care. So... So thank you, brothers and sisters, for listening to the Mitch Gray Show or watching. Please make sure you follow us on social media, M Gray Media. Subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. Also follow us on our YouTube channel. That's Mitch Gray, Gray. And may your day be filled with much success. And remember, as Andy told us, success is not an addition. It is subtraction. So make sure you're putting your life in the right perspective, and you're loving yourself and loving those around you. Have a great day, brothers and sisters, and we will talk to you soon. Andy, if you'll hang on the line, I will chat with you.
All right, dude. Peace out.